The shuttle docked with Earth's orbital defense station with a soft thud that echoed through the metal corridors. Ambassador Song Hye-jin stepped out, her face pale and tired. She had been traveling for 3 days straight from Nexus Prime, the neutral world where the Galactic Council met. The news she carried would change everything for humanity. Captain Lee Tae-ho waited for her in the docking bay. He could see from her expression that the meeting had not gone well. Around them, technicians and soldiers went about their daily work, unaware that their entire future hung in the balance. "How bad is it?" Lee Tae-ho asked as they walked toward the command center. Song Hye-jin pulled out a small data pad and handed it to him. "See for yourself. They gave me this to bring back to Earth. They call it a compliance offer." Lee Tae-ho read the document as they walked. His jaw tightened with each line. The Galactic Council, representing over 200 alien species, had made their demands clear. Humanity would give them 60% of Earth's resources every year. They would also provide 100,000 humans to work as servants across the galaxy. Finally, Earth would accept Council oversight of all human activities, and if we refuse, Lee Tae-ho asked, though he already knew the answer. "Complete destruction," Song Hye-jin replied. "They showed me images of the last species that said no. There's nothing left of their home world except dust." They entered the command center, a large room filled with screens showing the positions of human ships throughout the solar system. Admiral Kim Do-young stood at the central console studying fleet reports. When he saw them approach, he knew immediately that the news was bad. "Admiral," Song Hye-jin said, "we need to call an emergency meeting. All department heads, immediately." Within an hour, the station's main conference room was packed. Dr. Park Soo-jin, the chief scientist, sat next to engineer Choi Min-ho, who designed most of humanity's ship weapons. Around the table were the leaders of Earth's military, scientific, and political organizations. Song Hye-jin stood and activated the main screen. Images of the Galactic Council appeared. Dozens of alien species sitting in a vast chamber. Some looked like giant insects. Others resembled walking trees or floating gas clouds. All of them had one thing in common. They looked at humans the way humans might look at ants. "The Council has given us 30 standard days to accept their terms," Song Hye-jin began. "They call it integration into galactic civilization. I call it slavery." Admiral Kim Do-young leaned forward. "What kind of military force are we looking at?" 50,000 ships, Song Hye-jin replied. The room fell silent. "They're already on their way here. The Council's enforcement fleet will arrive in 28 days. Dr. Park Soo-jin whistled softly. "We have 500 ships total. Even if every one of them was a match for theirs, which they're not, we'd be outnumbered 100 to 1. Engineer Choi Min-ho shook his head. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Their shields alone can probably stop anything we can throw at them. So we surrender," said General Nam Ki-woo, the head of Earth's ground forces. "What choice do we have? At least some humans will survive." "No," Lee Tae-ho said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. "We don't surrender. We've never been good at surrendering." Admiral Kim Do-young frowned. "Captain, I respect your fighting spirit, but we have to be realistic. This isn't a battle we can win through courage alone." Lee Tae-ho stood up and walked to the screen showing the Council's fleet composition. He studied the organized formations, the standard ship designs, the predictable attack patterns. "Admiral, may I ask you something? How long has this Galactic Council been in power?" "According to their records, about 50,000 years, Dr. Park Soo-jin answered. "They've absorbed over 2,000 different species." "And how many of those species fought back?" Song Hye-jin checked her notes. "None, according to what they told me. They said most species see the wisdom of joining the Council immediately. The few that hesitated were convinced by a simple demonstration of the Council's power." Lee Tae-ho nodded slowly. "So they've never actually fought a war?" "Not a real one." "What do you mean?" asked engineer Choi Min-ho. Lee Tae-ho turned to face the room. "Think about it. For 50,000 years they've been dealing with species that either surrendered immediately or were too scared to fight after seeing their fleet. They've never encountered serious resistance. They don't know what war actually looks like. Dr. Park Soo-jin caught on first. You're saying they're not actually warriors. They're just bureaucrats with big ships. Exactly. Look at their fleet, formations. Everything is perfectly organized, symmetrical, predictable. They fight like they govern, by committee, with standard procedures for everything. Lee Tae-ho pointed at the screen. They've never fought a species that learned warfare before they learned to walk among the stars. The room was quiet as everyone considered this. Admiral Kim Do-young spoke first. Even if that's true, Captain, they still have overwhelming numbers and superior technology. Do they? Lee Tae-ho asked. Superior technology, yes, but do they know how to use it? When you've never had to fight for your life, do you really understand your weapons? Engineer Choi Min-ho was beginning to smile. You're thinking of something, aren't you? Lee Tae-ho looked around the room at the faces of Earth's leaders. These were people whose ancestors had fought wars with sticks and stones, then with metal and gunpowder, then with nuclear weapons and lasers. Humans had been perfecting the art of killing each other for thousands of years before they ever left their home planet. I'm thinking the Council made a mistake, Lee Tae-ho said. They demanded tribute from humanity, but they don't understand what humanity is. Song Hye-jin leaned forward. What are you proposing? We give them exactly what they asked for, Lee Tae-ho said. We deliver their tribute personally, and we make sure they never forget the experience. Admiral Kim Do-young was quiet for a long moment. Then he activated his communicator. All department heads, prepare for Operation Protocol Zero. We have 28 days to teach the galaxy why humans are different. As the meeting ended and people began to file out, Dr. Park Soo-jin approached Lee Tae-ho. Do you really think we can win this? Lee Tae-ho looked out the window at the stars where somewhere an alien fleet was coming to make humanity kneel. Doctor, we don't need to win. We just need to make sure they understand what they're dealing with. The Council has been ruling through fear for 50,000 years. I think it's time someone reminded them what fear actually feels like. The die was cast. In 28 days, the galaxy would learn that humanity had a very different understanding of the word tribute than anyone expected. The lunar shipyards had never seen activity like this. Day and night, crews of engineers and technicians crawled over every human ship in the fleet. But they weren't building new weapons or adding armor. Instead, they were doing something much stranger. Engineer Choi Min-ho floated in zero gravity next to the battleship Seoul's Hope, watching as workers removed entire sections of the ship's hull. To anyone watching, it would look like they were weakening their own vessels. Choi Min-ho knew better. They were turning every ship into something the galaxy had never seen before. How's the progress? Asked Captain Lee Tae-ho as he joined him. Near the ship. Ahead of schedule, Choi Min-ho replied, checking his data pad. All 500 ships will be ready in 18 days. The Council won't know what hit them. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Park Soo-jin sat in her laboratory surrounded by holographic displays showing Council military formations. She had been studying their tactics for 2 weeks straight, barely sleeping or eating. What she had discovered was both encouraging and terrifying. They're completely predictable, she muttered to herself, highlighting patterns in the data. Every engagement follows the same pattern. Arrive in formation, demand surrender, wait for compliance. If there's resistance, they use overwhelming force in a straight frontal attack. Her assistant, researcher Yoon Jae-sung, looked up from his own work. That sounds like it would be effective against most opponents. It would be, Dr. Park Soo-jin agreed, but only against opponents who think like they do. Look at this. She pointed to a tactical display. In 50,000 years, they've never faced an enemy that didn't fight the way they expected. Every species either surrendered immediately or tried to match them ship for ship in traditional space combat. She pulled up another display showing human military history. But humans learned to fight differently. We learned to use terrain, deception, asymmetric warfare. We learned that the best way to beat a stronger enemy is to refuse to fight on their terms. Yoon Jae-sung nodded slowly. So what do? We can't run and hide in space. Dr. Park Soo-jin smiled for the first time in days. Who says we need to hide? We're going to do something they've never encountered. We're going to turn their own rules against them. Across the Earth, preparations continued. In the asteroid belt, mining crews weren't just extracting resources anymore. They were following very specific instructions from engineer Choi Min-ho, turning every piece of space rock into part of humanity's response to the Council. On Mars, the colonial government was busy with its own part of the plan. Governor Lee Sun-woo coordinated with Earth to make sure every trade route, every supply line, every piece of civilian infrastructure was ready for what was coming. "This is insane," said his aide, Park Dong-hyun, as they reviewed the latest orders from Admiral Kim Do-young. "Maybe," Governor Lee Sun-woo replied. "But it's the kind of insane that might actually work. The Council thinks they're dealing with another peaceful species that will bow down to superior force. They have no idea what humans are capable of when they get creative." The most important preparations, however, were happening in the diplomatic sector. Ambassador Song Hye-jin had requested a formal audience with the Galactic Council to deliver humanity's official response to their ultimatum. The Council, confident that this would be humanity's surrender, had agreed immediately. More than that, they had decided to broadcast the meeting across the entire galaxy. It would serve as an example to any other species that might be considering resistance. The great human surrender would be witnessed by billions of beings across thousands of worlds. Song Hye-jin stood in her office on the space station, practicing her speech one final time. Captain Lee Tae-ho watched from the doorway. "Are you ready for this?" he asked. "As ready as anyone can be to change galactic history," she replied. "The Council expects me to kneel and beg for mercy. They're going to get something very different. What if they don't buy it? What if they see through the deception?" Song Hye-jin looked out at the stars where the Council fleet was still approaching. "Then we fight anyway. But I don't think they will. They've been in power so long they can't imagine anyone having the courage to lie to their faces." The next day, Admiral Kim Do-young activated Protocol Zero across the entire human fleet. Every ship began broadcasting the same message toward the approaching Council armada. "You wanted tribute. We're bringing it to you personally." The message was sent in the standard galactic trade language, polite and formal. To the Council fleet, it sounded like humanity was preparing for an orderly surrender. They had no way of knowing that every human who heard the message understood its real meaning. War Master Keth Morin, commanding the Council enforcement fleet, received the human message with satisfaction. "Finally," he told his staff, "the humans are showing sense. Prepare for standard tribute collection procedures." His intelligence officer, a crab-like being called Vectar, studied the human message. "War Master, something seems unusual about their phrasing. They say they will deliver tribute personally. Most species simply leave their tribute at designated collection points." Keth Moran dismissed the concern with a wave of his claw. "These humans are primitives. They probably want to make some ceremonial gesture to save face. Let them have their dignity. It changes nothing." Back on Earth, the final preparations were complete. Every human ship had been modified according to engineer Choi Min-ho's specifications. Every piece of space infrastructure had been prepared. According to Dr. Park Soo-jin's analysis of Council weaknesses, every civilian transport had been equipped with hidden surprises. Captain Lee Tae-ho gathered with the other fleet commanders for their final briefing. Admiral Kim Do-young stood before them, his expression serious but determined. "In 72 hours, the Council fleet will arrive," he began. "They expect to find a conquered species waiting to hand over everything we've built. Instead, they're going to learn something new." He activated a display showing the human fleet's positions. "We will not hide. We will not run. We will meet them at the edge of our solar system and invite them in. We will be polite, respectful, and completely cooperative." One of the junior officers raised her hand. "Admiral, that sounds like surrender." "Admiral," Kim Do-young smiled coldly. "Officer Kim Ye-jin, what is the first rule of human warfare?" "Never let the enemy choose the battlefield," she replied. "Exactly. The Council chose to come to our home system. They think that puts us at a disadvantage. They're about to learn that when you're fighting humans, every advantage can become a trap." As the briefing ended and the officers returned to their ships, Captain Lee Tae-ho made one last communication to Ambassador Song Hye-jin, who was preparing for her historic speech to the council. "The fleet is ready," he told her. "When you give them our answer, we'll be ready to deliver it in person." Song Hye-jin nodded. "Remember, Captain, the goal isn't to destroy them, it's to teach them. The galaxy needs to learn that humanity doesn't follow the old rules." "Understood, Ambassador. When the council asks for tribute, they'll get exactly what they asked for. They just won't expect the delivery method." The countdown began. In less than 3 days, the most powerful military force in galactic history would arrive at Earth, expecting an easy victory. Instead, they were about to encounter something that no species in 50,000 years had shown them: humans who refused to be conquered. The Council enforcement fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system, like a dark cloud blocking out the stars. 50,000 ships of every size and design imaginable spread across space in perfect formation. War Master Kethmoran stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Judgment, and smiled with satisfaction. "Scan the system," he ordered his tactical officer. "Show me where the humans are hiding." The tactical display lit up immediately with red dots representing human ships. Kethmoran frowned. Instead of hiding behind their planets or scattering, throughout the system, the entire human fleet was positioned in a neat formation directly ahead of them. "War Master," reported his intelligence officer Vectar, "the humans appear to be waiting for us." "Waiting?" Kethmoran studied the display. More carefully, the human ships were arranged in what looked almost like a greeting formation, spread out in a wide line with clear spaces between groups. It was nothing like the defensive positions he had expected. Before he could analyze this further, a communication request came through. The face of a human appeared on his main screen, a middle-aged male with steady eyes and a calm expression. "Greetings, War Master Kethmoran," the human said in perfect galactic standard language. "I am Captain Lee Tae-ho of the Human Defense Force. We have been expecting you." Kethmoran was thrown off balance by the human's polite tone. In his experience, species either begged for mercy or made desperate threats when faced with the Council fleet. This human sounded like he was welcoming old friends. "Human," Kethmoran replied. "You will surrender immediately and prepare for tribute collection. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your species." Captain Lee Tae-ho nodded, respectfully. "Of course, War Master. We have prepared the tribute exactly as the Council demanded. However, we would be honored if you would allow us to deliver it personally. It is a human custom to present gifts with proper ceremony." This was unexpected. Kethmoran looked at his staff, who seemed equally puzzled. In 50,000 years of tribute collection, no species had ever asked to deliver their tribute personally. They usually just left it at designated collection points and begged to be left alone. "What kind of ceremony?" Kethmoran asked suspiciously. "Nothing complicated," Lee Tae-ho assured him. "We have prepared special containers for the tribute, marked with symbols of respect for the Council's authority. We would like to guide your fleet to Earth so you can witness the formal presentation. It would be a great honor for our species." Vectar whispered urgently to Kethmoran. "War Master, this could be a trap." Kethmoran considered this, but looking at the human fleet formation, he couldn't see how 500 primitive ships could threaten his massive armada. Besides, the humans were actually cooperating, which made his job easier. "Very well," he decided. "You will guide us to your planet, but any deception will result in immediate destruction." "Understood completely," Lee Tae-ho replied. "Please follow our lead ships. We will take you directly to the tribute collection point." The massive Council fleet began moving deeper into the Sol system, with human ships positioned around them, like escorts. To the Council officers, it looked like a proper surrender procession. The humans were showing proper respect for their superior firepower. On Earth, Dr. Park Soo-jin monitored Council communications from her command post. She had cracked their basic communication codes weeks ago and was listening to their internal discussions. "They're completely confident," she reported to Admiral Kim Do-young. "Their officers are already discussing how to divide up our resources. They think this is just another routine conquest." Admiral Kim Do-young watched the fleet movements on his tactical display. Perfect. The more confident they are, the less attention they'll pay to details. As the combined fleets approached Earth, the Council officers got their first look at humanity's prepared tribute. Massive cargo containers floated in orbit around the planet, each one clearly marked with Council symbols and humanity's submission. There were thousands of them, containing exactly 60% of Earth's most valuable resources, just as demanded. High Counselor Vexithari had joined the fleet specifically to witness humanity's surrender. He stood beside Keth Moran on the bridge, admiring the sight of another conquered species. "Excellent work, War Master," Vexithari said. "The humans have shown proper wisdom. Perhaps we can use them as an example to encourage other species to surrender more quickly." Keth Moran nodded, though something still bothered him about the situation. The humans were being too cooperative, too organized. In his experience, conquered species were usually terrified and disorganized by this point. "War Master," his tactical officer called out, "I'm reading some unusual energy signatures from the tribute containers." "What kind of signatures?" Keth Moran asked. "Unknown, sir. The readings are unlike anything in our databases. Should I order a detailed scan?" Before Keth Moran could answer, Captain Lee Teho's voice came through the communication system again. "War Master, we are ready to begin the tribute ceremony. With your permission, we will activate the containers for presentation." Vexithari stepped forward eagerly. "Yes, proceed. The Council is pleased with your compliance." Lee Teho's image smiled slightly. "Thank you, High Counselor. I hope you find our tribute educational." Something in the human's tone made Keth Moran suddenly alert. "Wait," he began, but it was too late. Across the space around Earth, thousands of tribute containers began to glow with internal light. Their sides opened like flower petals, revealing their contents. But instead of the expected resources, each container held something that made Keth Moran's blood freeze. "Those aren't cargo containers," Vectar whispered in horror. "They're weapons." Each tribute container was actually a sophisticated kinetic bombardment system, disguised as a gift package. They contained the requested Earth resources, technically fulfilling the Council's legal demands. But they also contained magnetic accelerators, targeting systems, and guidance computers that had been hidden inside the resource packages. Captain Lee Teho's voice came through the speakers again, still polite and respectful. "Tribute delivery, commencing now, War Master. We hope the Council appreciates our attention to detail." The tribute containers fired simultaneously. Thousands of projectiles, each one technically part of Earth's tribute payment, streaked toward the Council fleet at incredible speed. But these weren't ordinary weapons. They were precisely targeted to disable rather than destroy, hitting shield generators, weapon systems, and engine components with surgical accuracy. The Council ships, designed to overwhelm enemies with superior firepower, had no defense against this kind of attack. Their formations, perfect for intimidating primitive species, became a liability as the kinetic projectiles found their targets with deadly precision. Engineer Choi Min-ho's modifications to the human ships now became clear. Each one had been converted into a delivery platform, capable of guiding and coordinating the tribute containers. The humans hadn't built bigger guns. They had turned their entire surrender ceremony into the most sophisticated weapon system the galaxy had ever seen. Keth Moran watched in shock as his mighty fleet was systematically disabled by what appeared to be gift packages. His shields sparked and failed, his weapons went offline, and his engines sputtered to a stop. Across his fleet, the same thing was happening to ship after ship. "This is impossible," Vexithari gasped. "They're primitives. How could they—" "Sir," Vectar interrupted. "Incoming message from the human fleet." Captain Lee Teho appeared on screen again, still looking perfectly calm and professional. "Tribute delivered as requested, War Master. I trust you found our delivery method acceptable. Each container contained exactly the resources demanded by the Council, along with our compliments. We do hope you'll stay for the rest of the ceremony." Keth Moran stared at the human in disbelief. "What are you?" Li Taeho's slight smile widened just a bit. We're exactly what you asked for, War Master. A species paying tribute to the Galactic Council. We're just doing it our way. Around the disabled Council fleet, human ships moved into position. The most powerful military force in galactic history hung helpless in space, defeated not by superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but by a species that had turned diplomacy itself into a weapon. The Council fleet hung motionless in space around Earth, their mighty ships reduced to floating metal shells. Emergency lighting flickered on disabled vessels as crews worked frantically to restore basic systems. War Master Keth Moran stood on his darkened bridge, staring at the tactical display that showed his complete and utter defeat. Status report, he demanded, though he already knew the answer would be bad. His tactical officer, working by emergency power, checked her console. Fleet-wide engine failure, sir. Shield generators are offline across all ships. Weapon systems are completely disabled. We estimate it will take days to restore even basic functionality. Keth Moran couldn't understand it. His fleet had been defeated without a single shot being fired in return. The humans had used the Council's own tribute demands as a weapon, turning diplomacy into warfare in a way that no species had ever attempted. Captain Li Taeho's voice came through the communication system, interrupting his thoughts. War Master, I hope you're not too uncomfortable. Our targeting systems were designed for precision, not destruction. Your crews should be completely safe, just temporarily inconvenienced. What do you want? Keth Moran growled. Want? Nothing at all, Li Taeho replied cheerfully. We've already given you exactly what you asked for. 60% of our resources delivered personally with full ceremony. The tribute exchange is complete according to Council law. High Counselor Vex Thari, who had been silent since the attack, finally found his voice. This is treachery. You deceived us. Did we? Li Taeho's tone remained polite but carried a hint of amusement. Let me connect you with Dr. Park Soo-jin, our chief legal advisor. She can explain the technical details. A new face appeared on the screen, a woman with sharp eyes and an expression of academic interest. High Counselor War Master, good day. I've spent considerable time studying Council law regarding tribute collection. I believe you'll find our delivery method is completely legal under Section 47C of the Galactic Commerce Code. Dr. Park Soo-jin activated a holographic display showing legal documents. You see, the Council demanded specific resources, which we provided. You demanded personal delivery, which we accomplished. At no point did your laws specify that the tribute containers couldn't also serve secondary functions. She smiled slightly. In fact, Council precedent established in the Vegan System versus Traitor Coalition case clearly states that tribute presentation methods are left to the discretion of the paying species, as long as the required materials are delivered in full. Vexithari sputtered with rage. You turned our own laws against us. We followed your laws exactly, Dr. Park Soo-jin replied. The fact that we did so creatively is hardly our fault. Perhaps the Council should have been more specific in their demands. War Master Keth Moran realized that something unprecedented was happening. In 50,000 years of Council rule, no species had ever found loopholes in their tribute system. More importantly, no species had ever had the skill to turn those loopholes into weapons. How? He asked quietly. How did you do this? Captain Li Taeho appeared on screen again. War Master, may I ask you a question? In your 50,000 years of conquest, how many wars have you actually fought? We've conquered over 2,000 species. Keth Moran replied proudly. That's not what I asked. How many of those species fought back? Really fought back with everything they had? Keth Moran was quiet for a moment. None, he admitted. Most surrendered immediately when they saw our fleet. The few that resisted were quickly overwhelmed. Exactly. Li Taeho nodded. You've never fought a war, War Master. You've only performed conquests. There's a difference. Dr. Park Soo-jin took over the explanation. You see, humans learned to fight before we learned to fly. We spent thousands of years trying to kill each other with every weapon we could invent. We learned that the best way to beat a stronger enemy is to refuse to fight on their terms. She activated another display showing human military history. We learned to turn everything into a weapon. Terrain, weather, supply lines, even diplomacy itself. When you're outgunned, you get creative. Admiral Kim Do-young's voice joined the conversation from Earth. The problem with your empire, counselors, is that you've been successful for too long. You forgot that some species might not be impressed by your big ships and fancy formations. Around the disabled council fleet, human ships began a demonstration that would be remembered across the galaxy for centuries. But instead of delivering a final blow to their helpless enemies, the humans did something unexpected. They began a rescue operation. Engineer Choi Min-ho coordinated the effort from his command ship. Human vessels moved carefully among the disabled, council ships offering emergency supplies, technical assistance, and medical aid where needed. It was the behavior of allies, not conquerors. "What are you doing?" Keth Moran asked in confusion. "Helping," Lee Tae-ho replied simply. "Your crews are suffering because of our actions. That makes us responsible for their welfare. But we came to conquer you. We would have enslaved your people. Yes, and we stopped you. But that doesn't mean we want to see innocent beings suffer. The war is over, War Master. Now comes the harder part." Dr. Park Soo-jin appeared on screen again. "War Master, High Counselor, I'd like to show you something interesting. Are you familiar with your own fleet casualty statistics?" She activated a display showing the results of the tribute delivery. In the last hour, your 50,000 ship fleet was completely disabled. Total casualties: 0 deaths, 47 minor injuries, mostly from people falling when artificial gravity failed. Compare this to your standard conquest procedures. Another display showed Council military records. Your last 3 easy conquests resulted in the complete extinction of the defending species. Billions of beings died because they couldn't match your firepower. High Counselor Vexathari stared at the numbers. "What's your point?" "My point is that we could have destroyed your entire fleet just as easily as we disabled it," Dr. Park Soo-jin explained. "We chose not to. Why do you think that is?" Captain Lee Tae-ho answered before the counselors could respond. "Because we don't want to rule the galaxy, counselors. We just want to live in it. The universe is a big, dangerous place. There are real threats out there that make our little disagreement look trivial." He activated a long-range sensor display showing the galaxy beyond council space. Unknown species with technology that makes yours look primitive. Ancient automated defense systems that destroy anything that comes near them. Cosmic phenomena that could wipe out entire sectors. The galaxy needs protectors, not conquerors, Lee Tae-ho continued. It needs species that know how to fight, not just how to overwhelm peaceful civilizations. War Master Keth Moran studied the human's words carefully. "What are you proposing?" "A new arrangement," Admiral Kim Do-young replied from Earth. "Instead of tribute, Earth offers mutual defense contracts. Any species threatened by outside forces can request human military assistance. The price isn't submission, it's cooperation." Dr. Park Soo-jin added, "We'll teach other species what humans learned long ago. How to turn disadvantages into advantages. How to fight smart instead of fighting fair. How to make everything a weapon when your survival depends on it." "Engineer." Choi Min-ho's voice came through the communication system as his crews finished helping the disabled council ships restore basic power. "War Master, your ships should be functional enough to return home safely. We've also taken the liberty of installing some defensive upgrades. Consider them a gift." High Counselor Vexathari finally spoke, his voice subdued. "You're letting us go?" "Of course," Captain Lee Tae-ho replied. "The tribute has been paid, the ceremony is complete. Your business here is finished. Though I suspect the Council might want to reconsider its policies regarding future tribute demands." As the Council fleet prepared to depart, War Master Keth Moran sent one final message. "Captain Lee Tae-ho, I have one last question. Why did you show us mercy?" Lee Tae-ho's answer would be recorded in galactic history archives for thousands of years to come. "Because mercy is just another weapon, War Master, and sometimes it's the most effective one of all." The Council fleet limped away from Earth, carrying news that would change the galaxy forever. The age of easy conquest was over. Humanity had taught the universe a new lesson about the difference between strength and power. 3 months after the Battle of Sol, as historians were already calling it, the Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime looked very different. The grand hall that had once echoed with demands for tribute now buzzed with nervous conversations about defense contracts and mutual aid agreements. High Counselor Vexithari sat in his ornate chair, but the arrogance that had once defined him was gone. Across the chamber, representatives from dozens of species watched him with expressions that ranged from curiosity to barely hidden contempt. Word of the Council's defeat had spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communications, and the political consequences were still unfolding. The Council recognizes Ambassador Song Hyojin of the Human Federation, Vexithari announced, his voice lacking its former authority. Song Hyojin walked to the center of the chamber with confident steps. She had requested this audience to present humanity's formal counter-proposal to the tribute system. The entire galaxy was watching through live broadcast, just as they had watched her supposed surrender 3 months earlier. "Honored counselors," she began, "Earth comes before you today, not as a conquered species but as a potential ally. The events at Sol have shown that the old ways of doing business in this galaxy no longer serve anyone's interests." She activated a holographic display showing galactic threat assessments. While the Council has spent 50,000 years collecting tribute from peaceful species, real dangers have been growing in the Outer Rim territories. Automated war machines left behind by extinct civilizations, predatory species that view the Council's territories as hunting grounds, cosmic phenomena that threaten entire star systems. Murmurs of recognition rippled through the chamber. Many species had reported strange encounters at the edges of Council space, but these reports had been dismissed as unimportant compared to tribute collection. "Earth proposes a new system," Song Hyojin continued. "Instead of tribute, we offer mutual defense contracts. Any species facing external threats can request human military assistance. In return, we ask only for technological and cultural exchange." Representative from the Vegan Traders Union stood up. "What guarantee do we have that humans won't simply replace the Council as our new masters?" Song Hyojin smiled. "An excellent question. Captain Lee Tae-ho, would you please answer that?" The chamber's main screen activated, showing Captain Lee Tae-ho speaking from his flagship in orbit around Nexus Prime. His ship was one of 12 human vessels that had arrived with the ambassador, not as a threat, but as a demonstration of humanity's new role in galactic affairs. "Counselor Vexithari can answer that question better than I can," Lee Tae-ho said. "War Master Kethmaran's fleet was completely at our mercy 3 months ago. We could have destroyed every ship, conquered the Council territories, and established our own empire. Instead, we sent you home with gifts and an offer of friendship." High Counselor Vexithari stood slowly. The admission he was about to make would end his political career, but it was necessary. The human speaks truth. They held absolute power over us and chose to use it mercifully. This is not how conquerors behave. From his command center, on the human ship, Admiral Kim Do-young joined the conversation. He had been promoted after the Sol incident and now commanded the first integrated human-alien defense fleet. Ships from 17 different species flew alongside human vessels, all learning the tactical innovations that had defeated the Council. "The universe is full of real enemies," Admiral Kim Do-young explained. "Why waste time fighting each other when there are genuine threats that require our combined strength?" The evidence was already mounting. In the 3 months since Sol, human-led defense forces had responded to 12 emergency calls from various species. They had driven off raiders from the Void Sector, helped evacuate a colony threatened by solar instability, and assisted in containing an outbreak of self-replicating mining robots that had gone berserk. Dr. Park Soo-jin, now director of the new Interspecies Military Academy on Mars, provided the tactical briefing via holographic projection. "We've analyzed over 1,000 years of Council military data," she reported. "Your standard tactics work fine against peaceful species, but they're useless against genuinely hostile forces." She activated a display showing recent combat footage. 3 weeks ago, Void Sector raiders attacked a Deltan mining colony. The local council garrison followed standard procedures: organized formation, frontal assault, overwhelming firepower. The raiders simply scattered and regrouped, eventually forcing the council ships to retreat. The display shifted to show the same raiders facing a human-led defense force. Our response was different. We used the asteroid field as terrain, turned civilian mining equipment into weapons, and coordinated with the colonists to set traps. The raiders were defeated in 6 hours with minimal casualties. Engineer Choi Min-ho's voice joined from his new position as Director of Defensive Systems Development. "The difference isn't better technology," he explained. "It's better thinking. We teach species to use what they have creatively instead of just buying bigger guns." The transformation was already visible across the galaxy. The Vegan traders, once helpless prey for raiders, had learned to arm their merchant ships with disguised weapons. The Deltan colonies had turned their mining operations into fortress systems. The Arcanian science vessels had become mobile research platforms capable of defending themselves. War Master Kethmaran, now calling himself Defense Coordinator Kethmaran, provided the military perspective via communication from his new headquarters, on Earth. The former council enforcer had requested assignment to the human home system, eager to learn from the species that had so thoroughly outmaneuvered him. "I have spent my career believing that superior force was the answer to every problem," he admitted to the council. "The humans taught me that superior thinking matters more than superior firepower. My own officers now train alongside human tacticians, learning what real warfare looks like." The numbers spoke for themselves. Piracy in the outer systems had dropped by 60%, as formerly helpless species learned to defend themselves. Emergency response times to cosmic disasters had improved dramatically. Most importantly, tribute collection had become voluntary, with species contributing resources to the common defense instead of being forced to surrender them. Ambassador Song Hyejin brought the discussion back to the central point. "The council has a choice to make. You can continue trying to rule through fear and tribute collection, but your subjects now know there are alternatives. Or you can join the new system, where strength comes from cooperation instead of submission." She gestured toward the chamber's viewing screens, which showed live feeds from across the galaxy. "Look around you, counselors. Former tribute species are building their own defenses. Trade routes are safer because merchants can fight back. Colony worlds are thriving because they know help will come when they call for it." High Counselor Vexithari looked around the chamber at the representatives of species that had once cowered before council authority. Now they sat upright, confident, no longer afraid. The change was undeniable. "What would happen to the council under this new system?" he asked quietly. Captain Lee Tae-ho answered from his ship. "The same thing that happened to every human government, when we learn to cooperate instead of conquer. You become coordinators instead of rulers, facilitators instead of overlords, partners instead of masters." Dr. Park Soo-jin added, "The galaxy is vast, Counselor. There's room for everyone to grow and prosper, but only if we work together." The vote, when it came, was not close. Species after species stood to renounce the tribute system and join the mutual defense network. By the end of the session, over 90% of council members had voted to dissolve the old empire and establish the new Galactic Defense Alliance. As the session ended, Song Hyejin found herself approached by dozens of representatives eager to sign defense contracts with Earth. The age of conquest was over, replaced by an age of cooperation that promised to be far more interesting. War Master Kethmaran sent one final message to the Assembly. For 50,000 years, the Council ruled through fear. We told species they were weak and needed our protection. The humans showed us something better. They told species they were strong and taught them how to prove it. High Counselor Vexithari, in his final act as Supreme Leader, formally dissolved the Council's authority. "Let the record show," he announced, "that on this day the Galactic Council learned the most important lesson in the universe. The best way to keep your friends is to make them strong enough that they don't need you, but loyal enough that they want you anyway." The chamber erupted in applause as representatives celebrated the dawn of a new era. Outside, Human ships patrolled alongside vessels from 100 different worlds, all united by a simple principle that had changed everything. In a dangerous universe, everyone deserves the right to defend themselves and the wisdom to do it well. The stars themselves seemed brighter as news spread that the age of tribute was over, replaced by something humanity had always understood. The strongest empires are built not on conquest, but on the freely given loyalty of genuinely free peoples.